Bonjour everyone, in today's video I'll be showing you how I handle dots. I will be showing you how I handle a regular dot and a fisheye dot. So I'm starting with the regular dot here. I am doing my starting stitch and that means I go over that stitch a few times and create a knot. Sometimes I start my stitch with a knot, sometimes not. I don't have a knot on this one, but I have videos showing you how to start your stitch with or without a knot. And I will have videos coming as well on more hand sewing, but I will link the playlist that I have already. Apart from doing my starting stitch, I do two more stitches before I officially place my fabric around my finger to start hand sewing. So this is my first stitch here, and then I do two more after that. And the reason why is because I just want enough space for me to wrap my fabric around my finger and start to hand sew in a comfortable way. I thought that's how everybody hand sew, but I realized that's not the case. Everybody, for the most part, they hand sew holding their fabric exactly how you see me hold it here with my left hand. That's how I've seen people hold their fabric. And I tried that and it was very uncomfortable. It left me with cramps. If you do it for a long period of time, you do get cramps. But when I hand sew, I don't experience that. I wrap my fabric around my index finger, as you see here, and I just continue that way. That's how I've always been hand sewing since I was a kid. I have always enjoyed it, never got hand cramps, never experienced any issues. Never. No, I've never had any issues answering this way. I did have a few comments, well, two comments on the video where people shared concerns on what may happen if they sew this way. So I will address that in a bit. But I'm getting to the tip of my dot here, and it's best to make shorter stitches when you're getting to your dot tip, especially if you struggle with tension issues. That will help you to have a more secure stitch or a more secure project. So this is my stitch before last, and this is my last stitch that I'm sewing here, back stitch that is. And so I am going to sew into that space as if I was finishing a stitch, just that space. And so now I'm going to do a reverse back stitch to do like a U-turn. So I stitch in the stitch before it, and I continue that way for a few stitches. I call this a reverse back stitch, but it is an embroidery stitch, and I continue it the same way. I stitch here, and then I go into the stitch behind it or to the right of it and stitch. And once that's done, I finish my stitch, I cut my thread, and I'm done. And I do my dot this way because before I have sewn dots where I finish the stitch at the tip of my dot, I would be left with a pointy dot. And so because of that, I choose to do my dot this way instead. And so that's just how I've been sewing my dots. And it works for me. It gives me a smooth point on the right side of my fabric. I don't have any issues. And so that's what I'm continuing to do. So I'm finishing my stitch here and then cutting my thread, and my dot is done. Just like this. That's the right side that I sewed on. That's the reverse side. And this is the inside of my project and what it's looking like. It is smooth. I did share this project in the last video, but I will have pictures at the end so you can see what that looks like on me. And also I will show how I iron my dots as well. And as you can see, my stitches, to me, they are pretty secure. And that is it for that dot that I saw with that back stitch. This is a reverse back stitch I'm doing here for this dot. This is still a regular dot. I like to do a reverse back stitch because I get to start with my fabric position right over my finger from the start. So I start from a comfortable spot from the get-go. And I like that. I also like reverse back stitch because to me, it looks more secure. It looks sturdy. I guess it can seem bulky as well, depending on the fabric that you are using it with. But I do like it when I'm putting sleeves onto my bodies, especially because it just looks stronger to me. It looks sturdy to me. So I like that. But it is really the same exact thing as a back stitch, except you're working on the reverse side. And so, and then also it's from left to right, whereas a back stitch, you start working from right to left. So we're doing a reverse back stitch here. This is what the back side is looking like, just like a back stitch. And I'm gonna do this all the way to the tip of my dot. So on the reverse side, it will be a regular back stitch. So that's my back stitch, still going on with it. The reverse back stitch, still going. And I am getting to my last stitch here. and I'm creating my stitch, and I'm gonna go over it again so I can reverse, because that's the only way I know how to reverse from there, in a way that is sturdy at least. So I go over that last stitch, and that is my last stitch actually. Now I'm doing my last stitch. Sorry about that. So I go over it again, and I come out of it past the thread where the thread come out of. So I do the same thing, just like you would do a regular back stitch. That's what I'm doing now. And I'm gonna do that for a few stitches until I cut my thread and my dot is done. So that's my stitch. That's my dot with a reverse back stitch. And yeah, next I will show you how to do a fisheye dot. So that's how I handsew my dots. I will have videos where you get to see me handsew in real time. This is actually not even real time. I have a thick needle as well. It is not sharp. It is quite dull, but I like the thickness of it and how long it is. So that's kind of like my default needle. I need to get new needles, but that's what I use for now. But you'll see when I will have a video where I'm using a dull needle and a sharp needle, and you'll see the difference in how smooth it goes when you use a needle that is good. And so this is what the inside looks like with the reverse back stitch. It's the same thing, you get the same result, and I will show you when I iron it what it looks like. And so now I'm doing the fisheye dot, and a fisheye dot, a lot of people start from the middle of the dot, but I don't. I just start as far as possible, as far as I can from the dot tip. I don't necessarily start from the middle point where the two dots meet, because when I'm returning, it's just much more work that I'm seeing. I would rather just do as much of it as I can from the start. So I don't have a specific point for where to start, except that I know you should not be starting from the dot tip. Just start a few inches away from it and then go all the way to the other tip of the dot. And so that's what I'm doing here. And I'm using a reverse back stitch, as you see. And so when I'm coming back to finish the rest, it will be a regular back stitch, because then I will have to sew from right to left. Here I'm sewing from left to right to do my reverse back stitch. And I'm the one who call it that way, but it is a type of an embroidery stitch that I will talk about in a different video. But that is my stitch that I am completing here for the dot tip. So when I'm returning, I am gonna return with a regular back stitch. I hope that all makes sense. If not, hopefully when I post the video of me sewing in real time, and maybe just seeing it will make things make sense. And I will be making other videos from other requests that I had gotten as well. But I would say when it comes to sewing the dot, if you notice that you're not going to have enough thread to finish to the tip and then reverse, then you should cut your thread in the middle of the dot or a few inches before you reach the tip of the dot, so that you are not having to do a starting stitch close to your dot tip. So I would like to address two comments that I had gotten from months ago actually, and I did answer to those questions then. That was on TikTok, and I just thought maybe somebody may have the same questions in this video. And one of them was that maybe handsewing this way would cause the fabric to take the shape of the round. Well, I had a thimble in that video, but it's still wrapped up around my finger without a thimble. So the person said handsewing this way could cause the fabric to take the shape of the thimble. But I have never had that happen to me. And I feel like for a fabric to take the shape of an object, it would probably have to be left over that object for a significant amount of time. And you probably would have to have some sort of glue, something to keep it stick there. But I've been doing this since I was a kid. I've never had any issue with fabric shaping or taking the shape of my finger or a thimble. So, I mean, I've not always used a thimble, but I have not had any issues with the fabric taking shapes. The other question was that maybe with sewing seam allowances, which means two pieces of fabric, it would cause one end to be longer than the other because I'm sewing over a shape. I can see how that could happen with thick fabrics, but I have never had that issue. And like I said, this is the only way I knew how to hand sew. I didn't know that people could hand sew any other way. So I would not have guessed that there could have been any issue. But I've always just done what I needed to do to keep my fabric taut, using pins and applying tension to keep everything going. I've made garments, never had any issues. But despite that, I did think that the comment was valid because it is possible if you do not be careful. Because when I'm sewing zipper, I know I have to do more maneuvering. I did hand sew an invisible zipper in one of my projects that I was working on here, and I'll post a picture for you to see. I didn't have any issues with my zipper having one end longer than the other, but it does take more maneuvering though. I know when I'm doing certain projects to make sure to keep everything aligned, to make sure to keep everything taut. So I do think that that's a valid question or concern because it is a possibility that that can happen if you are not applying tension or using pins or at least base stitch your project before you do it. And I think I will let the video play here and stop talking.